What if I told you that everything in your home, your phone, your clothes, your food, your medicine is one small stretch of water away from running out? Not a hypothetical, not a war game scenario. This is happening right now. A waterway just 21 miles wide, narrower than the distance from downtown Los Angeles to the Pacific Ocean, is currently holding the entire global economy hostage. And the United States Navy, the most powerful fighting force ever assembled at sea, has been unable to reopen it for over 60 days. So here's the question nobody in mainstream media is asking out loud. If America cannot reopen a 21-mile strait with 11 nuclear aircraft carriers, 750 military bases, and the most advanced weapons in human history, then who actually controls the world's oceans? And what does that mean for the price of everything you buy starting this week? Stay with me, because in the next 14 minutes, you'll understand why this crisis is already affecting your wallet and why it's about to get worse. Here's the first number that should stop you cold: more than 13 million barrels per day. That is how much oil production has been wiped from the global market since this conflict began, according to the latest data from KPLR and the Atlantic Council. The entire United States produces roughly 13 million barrels a day, so we are talking about losing the equivalent of America's entire output gone in a matter of weeks. According to the International Energy Agency, this is now officially the largest supply disruption in the history of the global oil markets. Larger than anything that has ever come before it. Refinery output across parts of Asia and Europe is currently down 30 to 40%. Gas oil flows from the region are down 97%. These are not projections. These are the numbers right now, today. If this is the first time you're hearing these numbers, drop a duck in the comments right now. I want to see how many of you the mainstream media has completely left in the dark on this. Here's the plot twist that changes everything about how you think about military power. Iran's formal navy, the frigates, the destroyers, the big ships, has already been largely destroyed by U.S. and Israeli strikes. And yet the Strait of Hormuz is still closed. How? Because Iran doesn't need a navy anymore. The IRGC, Iran's Revolutionary Guard, is controlling that strait with small speedboats, shore-launched missiles, sea drones, and the threat of underwater mines that could be anywhere in that water right now. And here's the math that should terrify every defense minister on the planet. A $50,000 drone can threaten a $2 billion destroyer. A sea mine that costs a few $1,000s can sink a vessel worth hundreds of millions. For commercial ships, even the rumor of a possible attack is enough, because the moment your insurance company pulls coverage, you reroute, no shots fired. You don't need a navy to hold the world's economy hostage. You just need a $50,000 drone and a choke point. Now let's talk about what this is doing to the cost of shipping everything, and I mean everything that reaches your front door. Ships run on a fuel called bunker fuel, and what has happened to its price in the last 5 weeks is one of the most dramatic supply shocks in modern maritime history. In Singapore, one of the world's biggest refueling hubs, bunker fuel cost $486 per ton on February 12th. By March 20th, just 5 weeks later, it had hit $1,034 per ton. That is a 113% increase in 35 days. Marine gas oil surged even harder, from $669 up to $1,811 per ton in Singapore. A 171% spike in the same window, confirmed by industry data from Splash 247 and Manifold Times. In Fujairah, the key refueling port closest to the Strait, VLSFO, jumped from $476 to $1,248, a 162% surge. Analysts are calling this a bunker market supply shock with no modern precedent. Ships in some ports literally cannot find fuel to buy. And here's what that means for you specifically. Analysts warn that cost increases of this scale historically translate to 5 to 10% higher grocery prices within 3 months, meaning this is not just a shipping problem, it is your problem. And it gets worse, because the Hormuz closure just turned the Panama Canal into the most expensive shortcut on Earth. Ships that normally pass through the Persian Gulf are now rerouting, and many of them need to cross Panama to reach Asia. Wait times at the canal have surged to as long as 2 weeks. And when you have been waiting 14 days with a cargo worth tens of millions of dollars, you will pay almost anything to jump the line. One single Panamax lock slot sold at auction this month for $1.7 million, confirmed by Argus Data and the Panama Canal Authority. One Neo-Panamax slot, the large lane opened in 2016, went for $4 million. $4 million for one ship to move through one canal. That matches the single highest payment ever recorded at the canal first reached during Panama's historic drought in late 2023. And while that is happening at Panama, here is what is happening to the 43 container ships still stranded inside the conflict zone right now. The world's top shipping lines, including CMA, CGM, COSCO, Hapag-Lloyd, and MSC, tried to evacuate their vessels when the conflict began. Most made it out, but 2 MSC ships were seized by Iranian authorities mid-escape. The companies still operating in the region are paying up to $70,000 per day just to keep a single chartered vessel running, whether it's moving cargo or not. So here is where we are at the halfway point. The Strait is closed, fuel costs have more than doubled, the Panama Canal is selling transit slots for $4 million, and a country with almost no navy left is still controlling the most important shipping lane on Earth. Now here's the part nobody in mainstream media is talking about. And it involves China, a naval arms race, and one number Beijing does not want you to see. Stay with me because this is where it gets genuinely alarming. First, let's look at what happened when the world's major powers sat down at the United Nations to sort this out. The session became one of the most openly hostile in recent memory. The U.S. accused Iran of acting like, quote, two-bit pirates holding the world's energy supply hostage. Iran fired back, calling the U.S. the real pirates, accusing American forces of unlawfully seizing vessels, terrorizing crews, and taking sailors hostage. China called the U.S. the root cause of the entire crisis. Russia used the platform to call European sanctions on Russian exports banditry at sea. 6 major powers, 1 room, 0 resolution. And while the arguments were flying, the Strait stayed closed. But here is the legal twist almost nobody is covering. Iran has never ratified the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, not the 1982 version, not even the 1958 treaty, which means under the treaties Iran actually operates under, its territorial waters extend only 3 miles from shore. The Strait of Hormuz is 21 miles wide. Do the math. Iran technically controls none of it by its own legal framework. And yet here we are. Comment below, did you know Iran never signed the International Law of the Sea, yes or no? I genuinely want to know how many people this is landing on for the first time. Now here is something even stranger happening underneath all of this. Close to 40 countries at the International Maritime Organization have reported their national flags being used fraudulently by ships that have 0 legal right to fly them. The Netherlands found fake ship registries being run in its name from St. Martin, Aruba, and Curacao. Madagascar, Zimbabwe, Guinea, Mali, all of them have identified vessels flying their flags without any permission. Under international maritime law, a vessel with no valid nationality is legally stateless. And a stateless ship is, in the eyes of the law, a pirate vessel, which means any navy can legally board it, seize it, and take it into custody. This is one of the reasons the U.S. and EU have been boarding dozens of ships without warning, and why Iran calls it piracy, and why the U.S. says it is completely lawful. Both statements are technically defensible. Welcome to the legal no man's land that global shipping now operates in. Let's talk about where the oil is actually going now, because the rerouting effort is both impressive and fragile. Saudi Arabia is pushing exports through its Yanbu port on the Red Sea, about 3.6 million barrels per day. The UAE is exporting through Fujairah, up 400,000 barrels per day over the past 2 months. Japan, which imports nearly all of its energy, has seen crude imports collapse and is now drawing down national emergency reserves. South Korea has pivoted to buying crude from the Gulf of Mexico and the Red Sea. India and China are increasing Russian oil imports to fill the gap. Every backup route has a backup problem because Iran struck a pumping station near Yanbu 2 weeks ago, raising serious doubt about whether that bypass can even hold long term. And while all of this is happening with oil, Russia is quietly making a move in the LNG market that almost nobody is watching. Russian LNG tankers are heading north toward the Arctic route, repositioning to export gas to Asia as the European Union prepares to cut itself off from Russian LNG starting January 2027. Meanwhile, the U.S. just shipped its first LNG cargo from the newly opened Golden Pass terminal in Sabine Pass, Texas, a joint venture that, once fully operational, will export roughly 18 million tons per year. The energy map is being redrawn in real time, and the question is whether it stabilizes or fractures further. There is one more market getting quietly destroyed by this crisis, and most financial media is not covering it. Power plants across Asia that normally run on natural gas are switching to coal because gas is either unavailable or has become too expensive to justify. And coal moves by ship, specifically by dry bulk carriers. The Baltic Dry Index, the global benchmark for bulk shipping costs, is climbing. One veteran analyst drew a direct comparison to 1979, when an oil price shock triggered a global bulker boom as power stations worldwide scrambled to rebuild coal stockpiles. That boom lasted years. Southeast Asia and Northeast Asia are already burning more coal since the crisis began. If the Strait stays closed through the summer, dry bulk rates could spike hard, and that means another round of cost increases flowing through to everything manufactured in Asia. Now, the part I promised you. China's Navy already outnumbers the U.S. fleet in total ships. But that is not the number that matters. The number that matters is the build rate. According to a leaked briefing slide from the U.S. Office of Naval Intelligence verified by the War Zone and confirmed by the U.S. Navy itself, China's shipbuilding capacity is 232 times larger than the United States. 232 times. In 2024 alone, one single Chinese shipbuilder constructed more vessels by tonnage than the entire U.S. shipbuilding industry has produced since the end of World War II. Let that sink in. And the Hormuz crisis has handed China a free lesson, a live demonstration of exactly how to close a choke point without a traditional navy. Small boats, shore-based missiles, drones, mines. The playbook is now written. China's military aims to apply AI, autonomous drones, and robotics faster than any other force on Earth, and current assessments suggest they are on track to achieve world-class military capability by 2049. The U.S. is adapting, investing in counter-drone laser systems, autonomous surface vessels, and unmanned underwater vehicles. But the shipbuilding gap is real, the build rate gap is real, and the Hormuz crisis has shown the entire world exactly where the pressure points are. Let me leave you with the number that puts all of this in one frame. Container shipping schedule reliability around the world right now sits at just 60%. Before COVID, it ran at 70 to 80%. During the worst of the COVID supply chain collapse in 2021, it dropped to 30 to 40%. Right now, in April 2026, we are closer to the COVID crisis floor than we are to normal. The global supply chain has not recovered. It is being hit again from a different direction, with a different weapon by a different adversary. Over 80% of everything in your home arrived by ship. At least 25% of the world's oil and gas passes through choke points that can now be closed by forces with no formal navy at all. Fuel costs for ships have more than doubled in 5 weeks. A canal transit slot is selling for $4 million. And the largest oil disruption in recorded history is still ongoing with no resolution in sight. The Strait of Hormuz has exposed something the world spent decades pretending was not true. Our entire global economy was built on the assumption that the seas would always be free. That assumption is gone. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Part 2 is coming, and you will not want to miss it. Here's what Part 2 covers. China is building warships at a rate 232 times faster than the United States, confirmed by the U.S. Navy's own intelligence. We are going to look at the exact timeline, what their Navy looks like by 2035, and why there is one specific choke point, not Hormuz, not Panama, that analysts are now calling the next flashpoint. I will also show you the drone technology that is making carrier groups obsolete, and why the U.S. Navy's own internal documents describe the threat as existential. That video drops within the week. Subscribe so you do not miss it. And drop one comment before you go. Which choke point do you think closes next, Malacca, Bab el Mandeb, or somewhere else entirely? The answer might already be unfolding.